Good morning, and welcome to Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist Church here in Pasadena, California. Welcome to all members, friends, guests here in person and virtually. Neighborhood Church creates and grows an inclusive community of faith connected by love, spirit, and service. My name is James Coombs, and I am honored to serve as a member of your Board of Trustees. Thank you for joining us as we continue to prioritize connection over perfection in this online service to protect the health and well-being of all of our members and friends, and which we are recording for future viewing. We will continuously learn to adapt and to create joyful opportunities to be together while keeping our community safe. Today's service is led by the Reverend Dr. Teresa Cooley and Dr. Zenaida Robles and features the wonderful music of Wells Lang and a recording by our fabulous bell choir. Neighborhood Church upholds a covenant of right relations with one another. Today, we focus on the portion in which we covenant to honor one another. We aspire to live our shared values and our shared ministry through our daily interactions. We listen appreciatively, being mindful, present, and respectful, assuming good intentions, and seeking to understand one another. We aspire to resolve conflict in a loving, compassionate way, and to forgive each other out of our generosity of spirit. There are many ways to connect with our church community through the week, both in person and virtually. Whether you're new or ready to find new ways to engage, please visit our website and social media to learn more. Here are a few ways to connect. Join us directly after today's service on Zoom in a guided conversation led by Membership and Communications Manager Ginger Feary. Visitors and friends are welcome to attend, and the link can be found in this week's newsletter. Thank you to everyone who participated in one of the governance work group's listening sessions. If you missed a session but would like to weigh in on how we organize ourselves as a congregation and make decisions together, please be sure to read this week's Under the Hood newsletter, where you will find insight into our governance discernment process and be able to reach out to a member of the governance work group to make sure that your voice is heard. And save the date for April 29th through May 1st as Neighborhood Church returns to Esperanza International and church members participate in the building of dignified homes for those in need in Tijuana, Mexico. For more information, please reach out to Trace Izzard, whose contact information is also in this week's newsletter. Also, as was announced in the newsletter, we are thrilled that Reverend Teresa has agreed to serve a third year as our interim minister. Thank you for your leadership, guidance, and support during both this pandemic and the interim period. And again, welcome to Neighborhood Church. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, welcome to this inclusive faith community connected by love, spirit, and service.
Good morning. I'm so happy that you joined us for this online service. Our invocation this morning comes from the Gospel of Thomas, one of the Gnostic Gospels. For this pattern which I give you today is not hidden from you, and it is not far away. It is not in heaven for you to say, who will go up to heaven and bring it down for us, so that we can hear and do it? Nor is it beyond the sea for you to say, who will cross the sea and bring it back for us, so that we can hear and do it? But the teaching is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so that you can do it. Come, let us worship together.
Our opening hymn is number 83. Please join me in singing, Winds Be Still.
Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come. Peace grace this time with harmony. Fly, bird of hope, and shine, light of love, and in calm let all find the true tranquility. Bird, fly high, lift our gaze toward distant view. Help us to sense life's mystery. Fly high and far, and lead us each to see how we move through the winds of eternity. Light shine in, illuminate our inward view. Help us to see with clarity. Shine bright and true, so we may join our songs in new songs that become full symphony.
Sorry about that. There we go. There are many ways, let's see. Here, excuse me. Each Sunday, our congregation expands our impact by dedicating 100% of contributions to local social justice efforts. This week's Share the Plate donation will go to Villa Garden Scholarship Fund, administered by the Front Porch Community Foundation. The Scholarship Fund supports the academic pursuits of Villa Garden's employees, many of whom are from working class and immigrant communities. Join me, more paper here, as we learn more about this fund through current Villa Garden staff, residents, and past scholarship recipients.
Pasadena, California. I am thrilled to be part of this community and of what we're able to provide, of having a wonderful place for residents to thrive, to be able to give back, to enjoy every stage of their life. I'm also excited to have a wonderful community for people to work at. Our opportunity to have scholarships available enable our staff to be able to grow. And whether that's an opportunity within the senior housing industry or if it's in another venue, it's still something that allows them to make their life better for themselves, their families, and the surrounding community. So I'm very excited that we have it and that you are being a part of that to help us grow and offer this to our staff. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Villa Gardens was started by the California Teachers Association. So there's always been a very strong influence on education here. Most of those of us who live here now as residents have had help along the way with our own educational experiences. And in a way, it is, I would say, paying it forward because we've been helped so much in the past. The Front Porch Communities Foundation is the fiduciary involved in the process. They sequester the money that has been given on a voluntary basis by the residents here. And within the Villa Gardens community, our responsibility is to select the candidates for the scholarships.
I'm a director of social services at Villa Gardens Health Center. That I build these relationships with residents as they come into the health center and support them and listen to their stories and come out with the goals and reach the goals that they have set for themselves. I started learning about the community resources and the foundation and the support that they give. And one of the goals I had was to get my master's. So when my kids were teenagers, I figured that was a good time, but financially wasn't sure how that was going to work. I learned about the scholarship. I think that just motivated me more to pursue it, having a peace of mind that part of that was going to be covered.
I can see that it is helping many of our very talented employees reach a potential that they probably can't reach without help. We had a very charming, talented, helpful employee in our life enrichment facilities here, and we supported her as she went on to get her master's degree. Her goal was to become a school counselor, and she has achieved that goal. And while we were sorry to lose her because we truly loved her, we were thrilled to help her reach her goal. There was a quotation by Senator Warnock from Georgia that really appealed to me. And he said, "A vote is a prayer we give for our children." I'd like to adapt that just a little bit and say, my involvement is a prayer we give for our employees.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer, of meditation, of reflection, as we share in these words from the poet Catherine Mosby from the book of Uncommon Prayer. God of my struggling heart, deliver me to myself that I may stop fretting the hours in vain, looking for what's lacking always elsewhere and otherwise. Let me befall the peace which drops like wind suddenly between shadow and sky, the hush, like the intervals of quiet between questions, the sorrows of one season and the next, swift and sure and sharp as grace. Hone my gaze to the riches of detail, slight as the fur on a bee's belly, or the veins thin as breath lining a forgotten iris, translucent as a wing, rewards the hasty eye and anxious heart do not recognize. Help me to laugh with so much heart I shake the trees and tremble the quiet pools, surprise the warblers with my joy, multiply my delights till they surround me like an echo revolving in a gorge. Grant me hope, the measure of a moat, and my spirit will rebound. This love will burnish the air as if etched in lightning. For I have come so long without a sign. Into my path shed moments like the shake of leaves in handfuls, ripe and random. A little grace, the comfort of this gift. Amen. The joys of technology. Our reading this morning is from the book called Will and Spirit by Gerald May. He says, as a society, we are convinced that if we can only learn enough, become strong enough, and work hard enough, we can impose peace and fulfillment upon ourselves and everyone else. But the actual condition of the world and of our hearts refutes this. Something else is needed, some source of inspiration, some reservoir of power and wisdom beyond that which is provided by our personal wills. We need something that can balance willfulness with willingness, something that can temper our harshness with love. The human mind has become objectified as a thing to be fixed, altered, streamlined. Bad feelings are to be eradicated with the utmost efficiency. Good feelings are to be maintained and amplified. All of this, of course, leads us to feel less and less natural and increasingly contrived. We come to feel as if we are our own creations, and therefore fundamentally and essentially different from the rest of creation. This is liable to increase our alienation and discomfort, which in turn makes us work even harder to alter ourselves. There's still a slight hint within us that something natural and basic might be truly good, but even here we often feel that the only way toward naturalness is to construct it, to make it happen. Many of us are trapped in a middle ground. Their common sense prevents them from believing that the answers to life's questions can be had through a series of dramatic experiences or by joining any specific group. Instead, they seek depth rather than the succession of highs and a true integration between experience and intellect rather than a confused excess of one or the other. Still, more basically, they may sense that in some way fulfillment, if it comes at all, might have to come as a gift rather than as an accomplishment. Gerald May.
Our meditative hymn is number 1009. Please join me in singing Meditation on Breathing.
A few weeks ago, I asked 10 of my best women minister friends to join me in an online spirituality retreat. We used a format that was developed by Jan Richardson, the poet, that you have often heard me share with you from time to time. And the theme was responses to grief, which of course certainly feels timely right now. And it was truly lovely. We read poetry, we listened to music, we listened to one another, and we prayed for one another. I realized afterward it was this great balm to my spirit, which has been feeling quite dry and crusty recently. In the last few years, while I've had more time to myself than I could have ever imagined, I haven't really been taking time for myself. Time to slow down, time to listen to the Spirit, time to be open to grace. And what do I mean by saying open to grace? In my sermon on forgiveness a few weeks ago, I talked about forgiveness being an act of grace rather than an act of will. And any number of you asked what I meant by that. It's a good question, and I will try to explain, though the explanation will wander a bit through my understandings of spirituality and of prayer and of God. The poet Catherine Mosby, who wrote the beautiful prayer I shared with you, said, "The way to grace is unique and ineffable. It's more likely to be intuited rather than explained. Much of what attracts us to the spiritual is its mystery, its ability to elude language. It's not surprising then to find language more often getting in the way than showing the way. Perhaps that's why some of us more readily make a connection through the senses, a sight or a smell, a piece of music or a work of art. The oblique approach occasionally finds access that the direct one can't." I've talked before about this being one of the reasons why I use poems often for our meditations. Because to me, poetry offers just this kind of indirect route to a more spiritual way of understanding things. Reading poetry forces me to listen in a different way. It helps me be aware of my deeper responses to words, not just my reactions to them. I remember one of my first encounters to this way of understanding poetry. I was in a college course on poetry, and I came across the poem Sunday Morning by Wallace Stevens. "What is divinity if it can come only in silent shadows and in dreams? Shall she not find in comforts of the sun, in pungent fruit and bright green wings, or else in any balm or beauty of the earth, things to be cherished like the thought of heaven? Divinity must live within herself. Passions of rain or moods in falling snow, grievings in loneliness, or unsubdued elations when the forest blooms, gusty emotions on wet roads on autumn nights, all pleasures and all pains, remembering the bough of summer and the winter branch, these are the measures destined for her soul." This poem showed me a very unique way of looking at Sunday morning, or thinking about it in a way that I'd never been introduced to. Growing up in the Bible Belt in Texas, so much of my understandings of religious language revolved around the conservative and the traditional. But it helped me to realize that maybe there was more to religious and spiritual language than I had previously thought. What if being aware of all pleasures and all pains, as Stevens describes it, is really a way to experience grace? So instead of thinking about grace as a gift from an omnipotent God, I began to see grace as something we experience when we let go of our need to control everything. As Gerald May tries to get at in our reading this morning, maybe our experiencing grace is being open rather than sure of ourselves, to let ourselves experience something rather than to try to manipulate it. Even the avowed atheist Albert Einstein once wrote, "The fairest thing that we can experience is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion which stands at the cradle of true art and true science. The one who knows it not and can no longer wonder, no longer feel amazement, is as good as dead, a snuffed out candle." It was the experience of mystery, even if mixed with fear, that engendered religion. A knowledge of the existence of something that we cannot penetrate, of the manifestations of the profoundest reason and the most radiant beauty, which are only accessible to our reason in their most elementary forms. It is this knowledge and this emotion that constitutes the truly religious attitude. And in this sense, and in this alone, he says, I am a deeply religious man. So understanding grace this way means that we have to admit that we're not in charge of everything, and that there is more to life than just the concrete, knowable things. Thinking about it in this way means opening up some new pathways to a different understanding even of the concept of God. In a previous sermon, I explored my path in coming to the realization that I believed in God. And I won't repeat that journey, but suffice it to say, it was not a straight line. It required me to go through some difficult places, psychologically and spiritually. I experienced things that I cannot explain, and ultimately realized I don't need to. It was a process of recognizing that I am not God, of reminding myself that I really am not and fully in control of anything, and that much of life is mysterious. And as scary as that sometimes can be, mystery can offer a greater source of fulfillment than much that is concrete. Thomas More put it well when he said, "It's clear that some kind of spirituality arrives only after a profound struggle and emotional entanglements that perhaps rises like a clear sky after a dark and stormy rain." Rilke says that God has to be mined from the earth as we stoop over in the underground shaft of our personal strivings and difficulties. My professor of theology at Harvard Divinity School, the late Gordon Kaufman, helped me see the concept of God in a completely different way than I had ever understood it. Kaufman said that in whatever form it may take in various theologies, the concept of God is important because it both relativizes and humanizes. In other words, it does two rather opposite things simultaneously. It helps us to understand that we are not the center of the universe, that we are relative to all other things, and also that we are all beautifully and uniquely human. All religions find their own balance in this paradigm. Some emphasize mostly the relativity, the conservative traditions that ask for obedience and conformity. And others, like our UU tradition, place a lot of emphasis on the humanity, the recognition that each of us has something unique and special to offer to the world. But if we only emphasize our uniqueness, we lose sight of the ways in which all of us are connected, that we are responsible for one another, that we are responsible for the world, and we need one another. And in my view, that there is something more than just our concrete consciousness. A recognition that there is mystery at the heart of the universe. The psychologist William James put it this way: our normal waking consciousness, rational consciousness as we call it, is but one special type of consciousness, whilst all about it, parted from it by the filmiest of screens, there lie potential forms of consciousness entirely different. We may go through life without even suspecting their existence. But when you apply the requisite stimulus and at a touch, they are there in all their completeness. No account of the universe in its totality can be final if it leaves those other forms of consciousness quite disregarded. So for me, when I lose sight of this, I get to that dry and dusty place that I talked about in the beginning. When I fall into the dreariness of the everyday concrete busyness, I'm all too prey to a sense of hopelessness and powerlessness. But ironically, giving in to that sense of powerlessness, giving up a belief that we have to control ourselves into happiness, in fact, holding ourselves in emptiness, allows mysteriousness to take root and can ultimately feed our souls and rejuvenate our spirits. I think this is why I'm so captivated by the theory of emergence that Adrienne Marie Brown espouses, because it asks us to take our vision both down and out. As she says, emergence is another way of speaking about the connective tissue of all that exists. The way, the Tao, the force, change, God, goddess, life, birds flocking, cells splitting, fungi whispering underground. Emergence emphasizes critical connections over critical mass, building authentic relationships, listening with all of the senses of the body and the mind. One of the clearest explanations of spirituality that I think I've heard. And for me, what helps me develop this kind of awareness is what I call prayer. And allowing myself to sit in prayer is to open myself to the gift of grace. The kind of prayer I'm talking about is not asking God for something, but sitting in the kind of expectation that allows for a deeper experience of life to creep in. You may not call it prayer, and you don't need to. You may not be able to use God as the reference point or a way of understanding connection and mystery. I believe that grace does not need a definition of God to enter. So this is about as definitional as I can be about what grace and spirituality mean to me. My meandering around in this sermon makes it clear to me that some things simply defy definition. How to explain something that has changed my life, that has made it deeper and broader, that has filled me at times to the very brim with joy, and made me feel hollow to the very core with my own emptiness. How to define that which has left me gasping at my own power and my own insignificance all at the same time. How to paint a picture of that which has paralyzed me with fear and disappointment in myself, and which has lifted me up and enfolded me with unnameable love. Surely this is what we all seek at some level, whatever we call it, whatever religious or non-religious language we may use. Surely this is what we are called to do in this world, to find the beauty and meaning within ourselves, to receive by giving to others, and to connect to the Spirit that moves within us and around us and among us, that is the source of all life. That Spirit that I call grace. So may we water the dry parts of our spirits and revivify the beauty of our souls. As Catherine Mosby said so beautifully in our prayer, grant me hope, the measure of a moat, and my spirit will rebound. This love will burnish the air as if etched in lightning. For I have come so long without a sign. Into my path shed moments like the shake of leaves in handfuls, ripe and random, a little grace, the comfort of this gift. Amen. So may it be.
Our closing hymn is number 20. Please join me in singing, Be Thou My Vision.
Be thou my vision, O God of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom and thou my true word. I am with thee and thou with me, God. Thou my soul's shelter, thou my high tower. Raise thou me heavenward, O power of my love. Riches I heed not, nor world's empty praise. Though in inheritance thou raise, thou art only first in my heart. Sovereign of heaven, my treasure thou art.
Much as I miss having you all here to worship together, it's really a pleasure to listen to the purity of your voice. Our benediction comes from the great mystic Rabindranath Tagore. Let your love play upon my voice and rest on my silence. Let it pass through my heart into all my movements. Let your love, like stars, shine in the darkness of my sleep and dawn in my awakening. Let me carry your love in my life as a harp does its music, and give it back to you at last with my life. Amen. Go in peace.